Welcome to Hoko Polizzo, The Writing Life. I'm Terry Ellen Cross Davis, and our guest today is Beth Ann Fennelly. Beth Ann Fennelly is the Poet Laureate of Mississippi and teaches in the MFA program at the University of Mississippi. She's won grants and awards from the NEA, the United States Artists, a pushcart, and a Fulbright to Brazil. Beth Ann has published 6 books. 3 of them are poetry: Open House, Tender Hooks, and Unmentionables. A book of essays, Great with Child, Letters to a Young Mother, co-authored a novel, The Tilted World, with her husband Tom Franklin, and had work published in over 50 anthologies. Her 6th book, Heating and Cooling, 52 Micro Memoirs, came out in 2017. Beth Ann lives with her husband and their 3 children in Oxford, Mississippi. Beth Ann, welcome to The Writing Life. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so I have to tell you, I read Tender Hooks at a time when my husband and I were struggling to conceive, and it spoke to me and it freed something in me. Recently, I was talking to another poet friend who's also a mother about this book and realized that she too had a love affair with this book.
Aww.
So I wanted to ask you, do people come up and talk to you about Tender Hooks often? Is that common?
I mean, no one comes up to talk about poetry. That's not
So
common.
that's not common.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Football, maybe. You know, Britney Spears. Yeah. Poetry, not so much. Although I would say, the people who love Tender Hooks really love that book. You know, and I've gotten some letters and some really heartfelt responses from people. I don't know. It's so awesome when you write something, never thinking about anyone reading it, and then it finds the reader, and they need to reach out and tell you about it, and you realize that there was a communication happening, that you never saw them read it, but they were in their own, you know, on their own couch or in their own kitchen, and somehow words you wrote in your own house on your couch or in your kitchen found their way into the other person's life and touched their heart, and that touches your heart.
Oh, that's great to hear. Now, I did read this one interview, and you mentioned that if you realized Tender Hooks was going to be a book about your daughter's first year, you would have stopped yourself.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So why? Why?
Oh gosh, you know, I think if I said to you, like, now I'm going to read to you for 45 minutes about my infant child, you know, like most people would just like head for the exit so quickly, but I write to articulate my emotions. I think poetry educates the emotions, and I think as humans we need to educate our emotions because we think our emotions are perfectly clear and accessible and transparent, and that's very rarely the case. It's hard work to know how you're feeling. And I was under such a slew of new emotions in early motherhood, then I wanted to articulate these questions for myself and understand what I was feeling. And so I didn't set out to write a book about her first year. It's just what happened.
Okay. Well, and that makes sense. I know one of the things that you mentioned is like you've written about an early miscarriage. And I feel like in talking and writing about these issues, that these were things that were once taboo and once a secret carried in shame or gave women feelings of inadequacy. But now I'm writing about them. I'm reading about other poets who are writing about them. You're writing about these issues about, you know, early miscarriages. And I mean early, where people say, oh, you don't have a right to grieve. This almost didn't happen. But what do you think has changed? Is it the environment? Is it just a new generation of women writing? What do you think has changed?
I do think something has changed in the zeitgeist of our times where women are better able to claim their experiences as important and valid. Even if we didn't particularly have models that said, you know, this is worthy subject matter, you know, we had an idea of what makes for a great novel. And, you know, it didn't really include things like miscarriages. And then you find out 20% of women have a miscarriage. Right. And you know, when I went through mine, I had no sense that I was part of a community, that I could reach out to people, that this has happened to a lot of people, because you know, it is a subject that seems to have kind of shame to it. And so I wrote that poem to try to understand again what I was going through. And you know, sometimes people have said that it helped them understand what they were going through. And so maybe those women are going to be, you know, writing their own experiences, and you know, we're going to lose the sense that this is, you know, uncomfortable or taboo or not worthy of the gaze.
Right. This is interesting because it seems to me then that we're shifting, or we're opening up veins of exposure, we're opening up veins of opportunities for women to write, and that each generation can go on to do something more.
Yeah, like what are the young women now going to be writing about? It's awesome to contemplate.
That is,
Yeah.
that is. Now, so overall, motherhood has been a beautiful theme in your work, as has the body. Do these subjects continue to open up to you, giving you more when you return to them?
Yeah, just because I continue, I'll always be a mom, I'll always have a body. And, now, I mean, I'm interested in my body's aging. And, I'm interested in the ways it's changing. And I'm interested in, I guess I'll never be tired of thinking about these topics,
Well, that's great. That's great. So we've talked a little bit about Tenderhooks, so I have to ask if you can read a poem from Tenderhooks for me.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We were talking a little bit about Taboo, so I think that I'll read one that I wouldn't have planned on writing or, in fact, experiencing because it's a little uncomfortable. Once I did kiss her wetly on the mouth. Once I did kiss her wetly on the mouth, and her lips loosened, her tongue rising like a fish to swim in my waters, because she learns the world by tasting it, by taking it inside. I desired it, her learning my tongue that way. Yes, I wanted to soul kiss my daughter, to lather, slaver the toothless gums and the cat-arched back of her palate, to sniff the bouquet of baby's breath all the way to the vase of her throat. Look at her, in her high chair, wearing her yam goatee. I like to take her whole foot in my mouth. Look at her, in her bib turned backwards, like a superhero's cape. Beware small villains everywhere. Oh, that first day when the nurses returned her to my cot, so newly minted her soles were black from ink. They laid her naked on my naked chest so she could swell my breasts with milk song, so I could warm her skin with my skin, and so, next to my more regular heart, her skittish beat could steady. Though I swear, when she latched on, all meter, music, changed. I whispered in her see-through ear, I'd keep her safe forever. I, her first lover.
That see-through ear. There are so many very detailed moments that you've captured about that early newborn experience. I think there's one poem where you write about kind of being sequestered in the house during your maternity time. And I just think, do you write to remember those things?
Later I'm glad I've written them to remember them, but I don't so much write to remember them at the time. I write to feel them or understand them. I think that's the case.
Right, right. Because there's so much that you can miss and so much in the sleep deprivation of those early years that are hard to recall after a while.
Yeah.
Do you ever get to a point in your writing where you think, no, I can't write about this. It's too raw, it's too vulnerable. Does that ever happen to you?
No.
So if that's the case.
Okay, so when I'm writing, I'm never thinking about an audience. It's just not even part of my process. Like I'm just in the place where I'm thinking about words. I'm having this argument with myself, right? Later, after I've written them, when it comes time to publish them, then I think about it. Then I think, what will it be like to have this out in the world? And even now when I give readings, there are some pieces that I simply don't read. They're in the book, I can imagine someone reading it in private.
Right.
But I wouldn't almost like force it on someone in public,
No, that's true. That's true. So there is no taboo you can't tackle.
I mean, not that I can't tackle it, but there's no such thing as a taboo, like a forbidden thing I wouldn't write about.
Okay.
I mean, if I thought it was forbidden, I'd be more interested in figuring out what I had to learn from it.
Okay, that works. So how did a girl growing up in Illinois end up in Mississippi, and not only in Mississippi, but as Mississippi Poet Laureate?
Yeah, I know, that's a tangled web. I blame it on my honey, my husband, Tom Franklin. He is from Alabama, and he is, from the woods. He's the first person in his family to graduate college, and all his family's down there. And we met the first day of graduate school at the University of Arkansas, and I kind of understood being married to the Southerner would mean living in the South, but the truth is I love the South. I live in Mississippi, I teach at the university, I love it, and I've gotten involved for many years now bringing poetry to the people of Mississippi. I don't mean to have this missionary zeal, but I kind of can't help it because I believe that poetry helps people's lives. And, Mississippi is a problem, there's a problem with illiteracy, and a lot of people don't have books, they don't read books, especially kids. I worry about it a lot because I know if I could get poetry into their ears and take them back to the hedonism of sound and pleasure, that they would love it. They would love it and it would help them. So I do make a lot of visits to places like schools and libraries, nursing homes, Parchman Prison, stuff like that. So because of some of that work, I guess I had been nominated a couple of years ago for the Poet Laureate, and now I'm on my third year of my 4-year term.
I was going to say, so yes, you were nominated in 2016, and I know every state poet laureate is different, and I know sometimes you are tasked with doing things, but I'd like to ask you, what have you tasked yourself to do? You already mentioned getting books into the hands of young people.
So getting books into the hands and lives of as many Mississippians as possible is really my number one mission. I've taken on a couple other additional projects. One is that the National Lynching Memorial is releasing its individual county memorials, and my county is a place that had 7 racial terror lynchings. And when our monument comes to us, I'm part of a group of citizen artists who are going to do a series of workshops and presentations to kind of deepen our connection to the history of racial violence in Mississippi, to prepare for when this monument comes to us, so it's a meaningful event for a lot of people.
And that just seems like that's going to be an emotional torrent just to ride.
Yeah, I know. So I'm a little overwhelmed by the project and all it's going to require of me and the people who will be a part of it. But I also feel that I could do good with it if I work hard.
And I can hear the sincerity and the earnestness in you, and I know that means a lot to you. And it's at a really time when we really need to have this conversation to happen.
I think so, Terry.
And I think Mississippi's a great place for that to start.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm all for that. Now you wrote with your husband, with Tom Franklin, you wrote The Tilted World.
Yeah. And stay married.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, so what was the surprise for you in collaborating with your husband?
Whew. I would say it was nothing but surprises. And so we'd been married like 18 years when we started it. We each published 4 books on our own. So you'd think there'd be very few surprises, and it was all surprises. For example, you think you're going to write a novel with someone, so it should take you half the time. It took us like twice the time. It took us 4 years. We did a lot of research. It's a novel about the flood of the Mississippi River in 1927. So it's based on history, but a story that's been really dropped out of history. So we did a lot of research. We also had to figure out how to collaborate together, which we'd never done. And we came up with a plan that sounds totally logical. So 2 point of view characters, a female and a male. So I'm going to write a chapter from the female point of view, send it to Tommy. He's going to write a chapter from the male point of view, send it back to me. Boom, boom, boom. Done in a year. Ha, ha, ha.
Big plans. Big plans.
Right. Several things went wrong with that plan. One is I got knocked up again, third baby, in the middle of this. And then also that plan didn't work, this like separation of church and state sort of. So we ended up at the ends, like when we got our mojo working, we were together in my itty bitty office, like kneecap to kneecap, writing together our scenes, and then at the very end we were composing aloud, sentence by sentence, and it was wild and it was fun, And so you're married to a poet, so writing's lonely. You're alone with the blank page,
Right.
So just imagine being able to do it with your honey.
Yes.
It's fun.
It is.
You should try it.
There are many ways in which I do want to explore doing more kind of literary combinations and collaborations with my husband. I would wonder for you as a poet coming into this, and mostly a poet, but again, you have your book of essays too. But just, was there something that was freeing for you to have a longer line to work with? Was there something that engaged you in a different way, a different part of your brain, working with fiction and especially historical fiction in this way?
Yes, I have to say writing in the sentence as opposed to the line was a big change. And, for most people, I think that would sound like a really twee and crazy distinction. But I think maybe for people who watch The Writing Life, they kind of understand, that there's a real difference in the feel, a different locus of tension. And the line, has this kind of push and pull, and you're always aware of being modulated in the hands of the poet. And writing with the longer sentence, I was able to kind of have this broader canvas and able to bring in more history and more research. And I felt this kind of exhaling where, it wasn't this itty bitty sense of this control, but opening up. Then I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was hard, but good learning curve.
So then that makes me want to ask, is there a tightness, is there a tension when you're writing poetry versus a more free, kind of flowing, just attitude you can take, or just mental, just laxness that you can take in writing fiction?
Not laxness so much, it's just that the controls are spread out. So it's almost like the poetic line is like the warp and weave of some tapestry where you're pulling this way and controlling this way,
Right.
and
But in
it's
fiction.
and in fiction is just you still need, control and vision and grace, all the things you need with poetry, but it's just bigger,
Just bigger, more room, and then I also think more room for error too. But
Yeah, right.
exactly. That's what would scare me. But that's interesting to go then from talking about the tightness and tension in poetry to the kind of the length of the line in fiction to these short bursts that you have in heating and cooling your book of micro memoirs. And I mean, it's a book of micro memoirs, but so much of them feel like prose poems. While there are no real line breaks or stanza, it's, one reviewer called it richly poetic. So what drew you to this form?
Well, after writing The Tilted World, the novel with Tommy, this 4-year project, it's kind of high stakes. If you fail
Right.
writing a 4-year project with your spouse, that's really not going to be great.
Yeah.
So after that, I just was writing these itty bitty little things in my notebook, and I kept waiting for them to add up to some big thing. I thought I was going to write another novel, and I kept not writing a novel. It was just some crazy little memory or a bit of overheard conversation. And after a while, I thought, what if I stop waiting for these things to add up to something? What if they're just really small somethings? And then I started to see how small I could go, for fun, and just lower the stakes. And, I wrote a whole bunch of one-sentence pieces, and they were really fun.
Yes, you did. And they were a lot of fun. As a matter of fact, why don't you read a few of those now?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Yeah, I've got a couple I could read. I come from a long line of modest achievers. I am fond of recalling how my mother is fond of recalling how my great-grandfather was the very first person to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge on the second day. And this is the shortest one in the book. It's just 10 words long. Returning from spring break, junior year at Notre Dame. Swapped the rosary on my bedpost for Mardi Gras beads. And I'll read one more short one. This is from a sequence called Married Love. This is Married Love 2. There will come a day, let it be many years from now, when our children realize no married couple ever needed to retreat at high noon behind a locked bedroom door to discuss taxes.
I'm almost mad at you for that last one because now the secret's out.
Oh no! You were doing taxes all that time too?
Oh, there are so many times it's like, oh, mommy and daddy just need to have this quick conversation. Why don't you watch this?
Yeah, right. So we don't have like very good privacy with our children. Like they'll just like, if I said I'm writing, if my kids would come on and like just be like, Mom, can you make me a sandwich? You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that would keep them away. Except Tommy and I are so bad with money and taxes are so stressful that they know if we're ever doing taxes, like to leave us alone. And so we do a lot of taxes. You know, like what can I say? You know,
who knew that all that math would add up?
I know. Yeah, yeah. But now the book is out, so now we can't use that anymore.
Well,
so I wasted it.
Well, you have to find something else.
Okay.
Maybe you're balancing the budget. You have to balance the budget. You know, there you go. Baby needs a new pair of shoes.
Yeah, right.
Something to happen. So, but one of the things that you mentioned, one of the short pieces you read there, and just overall, you have a long piece in the middle, tender hooks, and it just comes up over again your experience with religion. How did it shape your writing, and does it kind of provide attention for you? Is there a layer that you can always use to dig at with your background in religion and kind of with the just kind of the run-ins you've had with your family's idea of religion and how stringent should it be? And then I remember in one piece I was reading, you talked about you were told you had to go to Notre Dame.
Oh,
right?
yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I grew up Catholic in a very strongly Irish Catholic area. Everyone I knew was Catholic, you know, and it shaped my worldview in a very profound way. But I did leave Catholicism when I was at Notre Dame, which, you know, is ironic. But my parents would only pay for me to go to Catholic school. I did go there. I loved Notre Dame. I got a great education, amazing. I have great friends from there. I'm still in touch with a bunch of my teachers. I wanted Catholicism to work for me. I wanted the music and I wanted the ritual and I wanted the comfort. Ultimately, it didn't work for me in ways that were really painful. And I kept, you know, subtracting things like I'm Catholic, but, you know, I don't believe homosexuality is wrong, and I'm Catholic, but I'm pro-birth control, and I'm Catholic, but I think the clergy sex abuse scandal is appalling and people need to be held accountable, and I'm Catholic, but. And then finally, you know, the role of women in the priests, that women couldn't be priests, there were just too many things I couldn't get over, and I had to leave, and it was sad. So I think my whole life will be shaped by this worldview because it, you know, when you have a system that you grew up with that provides so many guidelines, it colors the way you see the world. I'm also shaped now by the absence of that religion and comfort.
So yeah, it's an indelible imprint.
Yeah.
You can't ever escape it once you grow up with religion all around you.
Yeah.
So even if you do become, you know, lapse, or I've always thought lapse felt so judgmental.
Yeah.
as a word, but even if you find ways in which you
prefer recovering.
Exactly. I think again, so that has less judgmental quality to it. Exactly. Lapse makes you feel as if you really did something wrong.
Yeah.
But you didn't. You just grew to a point where you were not compatible with.
Well, yeah, I think lapse like indicates that you just kind of fell away because you were lazy. Exactly. And for me, I really wanted it. You know what I mean? I just couldn't. Like the tension between what I believed and what I had to act out. You know. It was too painful.
Now, I have this other question for you, too. I know you write for Oxford American. I know you are in anthologies, you're in work, you're teaching in an MFA program. What poets are exciting you right now?
Oh, sure. There's so many, actually. And here today, I heard a lot of great poets, including you. I think probably the best book I read last year was written by a student of mine. So I'm sure I'm going to sound really biased, but I had a really fabulous student. She just graduated from the Master of Fine Arts program at the University of Mississippi. Her name is Molly McCulley Brown. She's from Virginia. And she published her first book called The Virginia State Colony for the Epileptics and Feeble-Minded. Do you know this book?
I've heard,
really good.
Yes, I remember hearing her name, and I remember hearing that book.
Super long title, and it's about a real historical place in Virginia that was big in the eugenics movement, where people would be brought there, and you know, they'd be operated on, so they couldn't have children, and you know, they'd be brought there for many reasons, and kind of abandoned sometimes by their families. And this student of mine, Molly, she herself has cerebral palsy, and you know, was out driving with her mom, discovered this colony in kind of the woods, and realized with a different family, a different set of circumstances, in a different time period, she herself might have been brought to that colony. So she wrote a series of poems from the point of view of different people, like the doctors and the patients and other people involved there. It's a really cool book. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, no, I'm very much interested in this as a topic because I know that has been one of those dirty secrets of history in America.
Yeah, right.
And I think that there's this movement happening right now, and we were talking about this earlier. I feel like there's a movement where we're going back to some of these shameful histories, we're unearthing them, and the people who are unearthing them are taking those pins and they're digging, like Seamus Heaney says.
Yes, exactly.
They're digging underneath and they're getting to some of that history.
Right.
And they're giving voice to it and they're letting it come out to the light. So I really appreciate what she did with that. And I remember reading it was just maybe an article or something about it. And I was like, okay, I've read other pieces about forced sterilization and the fact that it's been so recent.
Yeah. Oh, I know it.
And that is in itself mind-boggling. And you think, okay, this is our country, but this is what we've done. And so, yeah, no, I thank you for that reminder, and I will make sure to look it up because, it captured my attention when I heard about it. So after writing, co-authoring a novel with your husband, after the micro memoirs, do we expect to see more poetry in the future?
Yeah, I hope so.
But do you think you'll fall back into writing, do you think you'll collaborate again with your husband?
I would like to. It was so fun. And book tour was fun.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Where did the kids go?
Yeah. Well, that's not easy for us. We don't have grandparents who can live nearby and take our people,
I know that pain.
Yeah. So, luckily we have a lot of great students, so we just pay them tons of money, But I would like to collaborate with him again. I almost think it'd be lucky for us to hit on another topic that was of interest to the both of us at a time when both of us weren't working on any other project.
Okay.
But hopefully we will one day.
Well, good luck on any future collaboration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Beth Ann, for joining us today.
Yeah, I love talking with you, Terry. This was great.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today on this edition of Hoko Polizzo's The Writing Life.